There are places that never stop breathing, even long after everyone has left. Places where silence feels heavier than sound. The Waverly Hills Sanatorium was one of them. Perched on a fog-covered hill in Louisville, Kentucky, the abandoned hospital stood as a rotting monument to death. Decades ago, it was built to treat tuberculosis patients, a place of healing that became a graveyard. Thousands perished there, their last breaths lost in its endless corridors. Locals said that at night, the building whispered. Emma Vale had heard those whispers since she was a child. Not real ones, of course. Just stories, passed around on internet forums and late-night podcasts. But as she grew older, the fascination became something deeper. A need to see it for herself. She wasn't a thrill seeker. She was a filmmaker, an independent documentarian who had spent years chasing legends and unsolved mysteries for her growing YouTube channel. But Waverly was different. It wasn't just another ghost story, it was the crown jewel of American hauntings. And this time, she had an invitation. A private company was organizing an event called the Waverly Overnight Experience. 5 participants. One night, locked inside from midnight until sunrise, perfect for her next documentary. The night she arrived, the fog was so thick that her car's headlights could barely cut through it. The air smelled of rust and rain. Her partner, Liam, sat beside her, arms crossed, eyes half closed, pretending not to be nervous. "You're shaking," Emma teased, though she was gripping the steering wheel just as tightly. "Because it's cold," he replied. "Not because I believe your ghost hospital nonsense." She smiled. "You'll change your mind before the night's over." The road wound upward until it ended at a pair of tall iron gates. Beyond them, Waverly Hills stood like a sleeping giant, its broken windows staring down at them like hollow eyes. A single lamppost flickered at the entrance, revealing the shape of an old woman waiting beside the gate. The caretaker, Mrs. Holloway. Her face was kind, but her eyes carried something heavy, like she'd seen too much and forgotten too little. She greeted them with a nod as the other guests arrived. Tara, a thrill-seeking vlogger, Dr. Cole, a quiet historian, and a pale man dressed all in black, Simon, who introduced himself as a psychic. Once everyone had gathered, Mrs. Holloway spoke. "Inside these walls," she said softly, "people believed they were being healed. But this place, it took more than it gave. Remember this. If anything feels wrong, don't panic. Pray. The ones that still linger here can smell fear." Emma thought it was just part of the performance, but the way the others shifted uneasily told her they weren't so sure. The main doors creaked open, releasing a wave of cold, stale air. The scent of dust and decay filled their lungs as they stepped into the darkness. Inside, time seemed to have stopped. Rusted beds lined the hallways. Wheelchairs stood in corners like forgotten skeletons. The walls were gray and cracked, covered in faded tiles and peeling paint. The silence was so deep it felt like the building was listening. Emma lifted her camera and pressed record. "Room 502, she whispered to herself as they climbed the stairs. "The nurse who hanged herself, 1928. Liam walked ahead, brushing cobwebs aside. "Probably an accident," he muttered. But when they reached the doorway, the temperature dropped. A sharp chill ran through them, their breath turning white in the air. Something about the room felt wrong. The shadows seemed thicker there, heavier. The light from Emma's camera began to flicker, and just for a second, as the beam moved across the room, she saw her, a woman, hanging from the ceiling by a rope, swaying ever so slightly, her face pale, her eyes open. Emma gasped and stumbled back. The image vanished. The rope, the woman, gone. Only dust and darkness remained. Liam turned to her. "What happened?" She swallowed hard. "Nothing. Must have been the light." She didn't tell him what she'd seen, but her hands wouldn't stop trembling. When they checked the camera later, the footage showed nothing unusual. No figure, no movement. Except, at the very bottom of the frame, something faint, written in static, like letters carved into the screen. "Welcome back." As the clock struck midnight, Mrs. Holloway locked the main doors from the outside. Her voice echoed faintly from the hall. "See you at sunrise." And then the building was theirs. The group stood in the main lobby, flashlights flickering against the cracked walls. The air felt dense, as if the place itself were holding its breath. Liam looked at Emma. "Still think this is a good idea?" She didn't answer, because she had just heard something. A faint sound drifting from the darkness. A giggle. A child's laugh, soft, echoing, and wrong. Everyone froze. Dr. Cole turned toward the hallway, his light trembling. "Who's there?" No one answered. But a shadow moved at the far end of the corridor, small, quick, gone in an instant. Then a door slammed shut somewhere deep inside the building. Once, loud and final. The sound rolled through the halls like thunder, and with it came the realization that the night had only begun. The slam that echoed through the halls left the group frozen in place. Then came silence. Thick, breathing silence that felt almost aware. Probably just the wind. Tara muttered, her voice trembling. But everyone knew the windows were sealed shut. Dr. Cole lifted his flashlight. "That came from the East Wing," he said. "Old surgical ward." Simon, the psychic, tilted his head as if listening to something invisible. "They're awake now," he murmured. "They know we're here." The corridor stretched ahead, a tunnel of decay. Their flashlights swept over peeling paint and broken tiles, each step crunching softly underfoot. The deeper they went, the colder the air became, thick with the scent of rust and medicine long dried. At the end of the hallway, a cracked sign read, "East Wing, Operating Room, Patient Quarters." Emma whispered, "This is where the doctors experimented. They tried anything. Surgery, light therapy, even electroshock, just to stop the disease." Liam forced a laugh. "And here we are, paying to visit it." The operating room looked like a nightmare frozen in time. Gurneys stood rusted and overturned, surgical trays scattered across the floor. A layer of dust coated everything. On one of the tables lay a long, rusted saw, too large to belong in a hospital. Tara raised her phone to take a photo. The flash burst, and for an instant, everyone stopped breathing. A reflection in the shattered mirror behind her. A tall man in a doctor's coat. No face, just emptiness. When the flash faded, he was gone. Tara stumbled back. Did you see that?" Liam shook his head quickly. "It was your shadow." But Emma's eyes caught something else. A single handprint smeared on the glass. Fresh. They left the room and entered a narrow ward lined with small patient rooms. As they passed one, a dull thud sounded from inside. Once. Twice. Then again. Like something, or someone, knocking. Simon's voice trembled. "They're trying to get our attention." Dr. Cole whispered, "Don't answer." Emma's camera light flickered. She raised it, and the lens caught a movement under one of the metal beds, something small and quick. A child's eyes stared back at her from the shadows, round, dark, unblinking. She gasped and stumbled back, heart racing. "There's someone under the bed!" Liam swung his flashlight. Nothing there. Just dust and cobwebs. Simon said quietly, "They say the children stayed here after their parents died. They never left." As they moved toward the end of the corridor, Emma glanced at her camera. For a second, the footage glitched. Then letters appeared across the screen in static, red and shaky. "Emma." She froze. "Liam, look." When he turned, the letters vanished. Her pulse thundered in her ears. The hall opened into a wide space. On the floor lay a broken sign covered in dust. "Morgue." A heavy door stood ahead, chained shut. The metal rattled slightly. No one had touched it. "Absolutely not," Tara whispered. But Emma couldn't look away. They called the tunnel below this place the body chute. They used it to move corpses out of sight. The lights flickered, and a wave of freezing air swept through the hall. The chains rattled again, harder this time. Then came a voice, soft, muffled, from the other side of the door. A woman's voice. "You came back for me." Emma's eyes widened. That voice. It sounded exactly like hers. She dropped her camera, the light spinning across the floor until it landed on the door. A pale handprint appeared on the metal from the inside. Everyone stepped back, breath shallow, hearts racing. But Emma stood frozen, staring at her own name scratched faintly into the dust beneath the door. The air around the morgue door felt heavy, like the walls were holding their breath. The others stood frozen, but Emma couldn't move her eyes from the faint handprint pressed against the metal. It was small, feminine, and still fresh. Liam finally broke the silence. "We're leaving this hallway, now." No one argued. Tara was already backing away, muttering curses under her breath. Dr. Cole clutched his flashlight like a weapon, while Simon, the psychic, lingered by the chained door, whispering something Emma couldn't hear. Before anyone could stop him, Simon placed his palm flat against the cold metal. The temperature in the hall dropped instantly. His breath turned white. He jerked his hand back with a hiss. "She's here," he gasped. "But she's not alone." They left the morgue behind, their footsteps echoing faster now. The corridor seemed longer than before, stretched unnaturally, as if the building itself didn't want to let them go. Every flicker of their flashlights cast moving shadows that didn't belong to them. When they finally reached the main hall again, Emma leaned against the wall, her hands trembling. "What did that voice mean?" Liam asked her softly. She shook her head. "I don't know, but it sounded like me, Liam. Exactly like me." He frowned. "Maybe it was a trick of the sound. This place messes with your head." But Emma wasn't convinced. There was something personal in that whisper, like the voice had known her all along. Dr. Cole, ever the historian, tried to distract them. "There's a passage under the building," he said. "Locals call it the body chute. Workers used it to move corpses downhill without upsetting patients. If there's any truth to the hauntings, it'll be there." Tara looked horrified. "You actually want to go down there?" Emma straightened. "Yes," she said quietly. "That's where it's leading us." Simon nodded slowly. "She wants you to go." No one asked who she was. Everyone already knew who he meant. They found the entrance behind a half-collapsed stairwell. The air that drifted out was foul and cold, thick with the stench of damp earth and rot. A narrow concrete tunnel stretched into darkness, sloping steeply downward. The beam of Emma's flashlight couldn't reach the end. It just faded into black. Liam hesitated. "Emma, this is insane." She looked back at him, her expression calm but distant. "If I don't go, I'll never know why she said that." Before he could reply, she stepped into the tunnel. The others followed reluctantly, their lights shaking as they descended into the deep, silent dark. The tunnel seemed endless. Their footsteps echoed like whispers, and the deeper they went, the colder it became. Moisture dripped from the ceiling. The walls were lined with rusted rails where bodies once slid down on gurneys toward waiting hearses. Dr. Cole's voice trembled. "Imagine how many died here. How many passed through this tunnel?" Tara muttered, "Can we not imagine that right now?" Then faintly, a voice floated up the tunnel. "Emma?" It was a whisper so soft it could have been the wind, but Emma froze. It was the same voice from the morgue. Liam shone his light ahead. "Who's there?" Nothing, just the sound of dripping water. Then the lights began to flicker. For a moment, Emma saw movement up ahead, someone walking toward them. A woman in a nurse's uniform, her neck twisted at an impossible angle, head hanging limply to the side. She was dragging something, a body wrapped in a sheet. The lights blinked out. In total darkness, the dragging sound continued, closer and closer. Emma's breath hitched. She could feel something brushing past her shoulder, cold, damp, human. When the lights flickered back on, the nurse was gone. But the sheet she'd been dragging lay on the floor before them. Dr. Cole knelt down, hand trembling as he reached for it. "It's probably..." He stopped. The sheet moved. Something inside it shifted, like it was breathing. They all stepped back as a faint moan came from within the fabric. Emma's voice. "Help me." Her own voice. She stumbled backward, shaking her head violently. No, that's not..." The sheet twitched again. The moan grew louder, turning into a strained cry that echoed through the tunnel. Liam grabbed Emma's arm. "We're going back, now." But Simon was standing still, eyes wide, face pale. "It's too late," he whispered. "She's already marked her." The moaning stopped. The sheet deflated, as if whatever had been inside it was gone. Then carved into the concrete wall behind it, the beam of Emma's flashlight revealed fresh words. "Welcome home, Emma." She couldn't breathe. Her heart pounded in her throat. Her name again, freshly etched, wet, as if carved only moments ago. Tara turned to run back up the tunnel, but her scream cut through the dark. The exit was gone. Only solid wall. Emma dropped to her knees, staring into the black. Somewhere behind them, the dragging sound started again, and this time it was coming fast. The dragging sound echoed closer and closer, scraping against the concrete walls of the tunnel. Liam's flashlight shook in his hands, its beam darting wildly through the dark. "There's no way out!" Tara screamed, slamming her fists against the solid wall where the entrance should have been. Her voice bounced back, hollow, like the tunnel itself was mocking her. Dr. Cole's breath came fast and shallow. "That's impossible. We just came from there." But the reality was merciless. The passage behind them had sealed shut as if the sanatorium itself had swallowed them whole. The dragging stopped. For a long, suffocating moment, there was nothing. Only silence and the drip of water echoing from somewhere deep ahead. Then Emma heard it. Soft, fragile, like a child humming an old lullaby. The melody carried through the darkness, faint and trembling. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word." She knew that tune. Her mother used to sing it when she was a child. But her mother had died when she was 8. Simon spoke first, his voice shaking. "She's calling to you." Emma turned to him. "Who?" "The one who said welcome home. She's not trying to scare you. She's trying to remind you." Emma's pulse pounded in her ears. "Remind me of what?" He stared at her, eyes wide and unfocused. "That you've been here before." The words hit her like ice water. She wanted to argue, to deny it, but a flicker of something surfaced in her mind. A smell, disinfectant, sunlight on white sheets, and a girl, small, pale, lying in a hospital bed. Liam grabbed her shoulders. "Hey, stay with me." Emma blinked. The vision faded, leaving only the oppressive dark of the tunnel. I think I remember this place," she whispered. "Not from stories, from before." Dr. Cole frowned. "That's impossible. This place has been closed since the 1960s. But Simon shook his head. "Spirits don't care about time. Sometimes they keep people, long after their bodies leave." A sudden metallic clang echoed from deeper in the tunnel. The group froze. The sound came again, closer this time. Something was moving through the dark. Liam raised his light, and for an instant they saw them. Dozens of figures lining the tunnel walls. Patients in decayed hospital gowns, faces hidden by gauze, their chests rising and falling in shallow, unnatural breaths. They weren't solid, half there, half missed, and every single one turned its head toward Emma. Her flashlight flickered. One of the figures whispered, "You left us." Another joined in, then another. The words layered and multiplied until the tunnel pulsed with their voices. "You left us. You left us. You left us." Emma stumbled backward, clutching her head. The voices weren't just around her, they were inside her. Liam pulled her close. "Emma, what are they talking about?" She couldn't answer. Her memories were flooding back now, pieces clicking together like glass shards. A hospital bed, a window filled with fog, children coughing in rows, and a nurse, her face kind, familiar, calling her name. "Emma Vale, room 214. Her heart dropped. She had been here, as a child. Simon stepped forward, trembling. "You were one of them," he whispered. "One of the patients. The sickness didn't take you, but something else did." Emma's breathing quickened. "No, I left. I got better." Dr. Cole shook his head. "Then why would they remember your name?" The humming started again, closer this time. From the black ahead of them, a faint light appeared. Not flashlight light. Something softer, bluish, almost like moonlight underwater. And there she was. The nurse. The same woman from Emma's vision. Her neck still bore the faint red line of a rope. She stood at the bottom of the slope, pale and glowing, eyes fixed on Emma. "You came back for them," the nurse said, her voice gentle but hollow. "You promised you would." Emma took a step forward despite Liam's grip on her arm. "Who are you?" The nurse smiled faintly. "The one who kept you alive when no one else could. You were special, Emma. The others died, but you walked away." Emma's chest ached. "I was a child. I didn't know, and now you do." The nurse's smile faded. Behind her, the pale figures began to move, reaching out their hands. "Stay with us, Emma. Don't leave again." Liam yanked her back, but the tunnel around them began to close in, walls twisting, the air pulsing with the sound of whispering lungs. The light flickered violently. Tara screamed as one of the figures brushed past her, its hand leaving a smear of frost on her arm. "Run!" Dr. Cole shouted. They bolted up the slope, gasping, stumbling in the dark. The tunnel seemed endless, their lights dying one by one. Emma could still hear the nurse's voice behind her, calm, almost loving. "You can't escape home, my dear." When they finally burst out into the open, the night sky greeted them like a cruel mercy. They collapsed on the damp grass outside the sanatorium, gulping the cold air. The entrance behind them was wide open again, silent and still, as if it had never been sealed. Liam turned to Emma, shaking. What the hell just happened down there? But Emma didn't answer, because carved into the dirt beside her knee were 4 fresh words, glistening like they'd been written moments ago. "Come back tomorrow, Emma." The morning after the escape was gray and quiet. A thin fog blanketed the hill, wrapping the ruins of Waverly Hills in a shroud of ghostly mist. Emma hadn't slept. She sat in her motel room, staring at the dirt-stained note they'd found etched beside her knee the night before. "Come back tomorrow, Emma." The words burned in her mind. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the nurse. The faint smile, the rope mark around her throat, and that strange tenderness in her voice. Liam paced the room. "You're not seriously thinking about going back there, right?" Emma didn't answer. Instead, she traced the letters of the note again with her fingertip, whispering, "What if she's telling the truth? What if I really was there before?" Dr. Cole, hunched over the motel desk, looked up. "Emma, trauma can plant false memories. You might have read about Waverly years ago, and your brain's connecting dots that aren't really there." Simon, however, stood by the window, watching the fog drift up from the valley. His tone was different. "She didn't imagine it. The spirits know her name. That's no coincidence." Liam turned on him, frustrated. "You believe everything that moves, man. We almost died down there." Simon didn't flinch. Sometimes the dead call only to those who once belonged. By noon, the group had split apart. Dr. Cole left for the nearest town to get signal and call for help. Tara locked herself in her room, muttering that she was done with the whole thing. Only Emma and Simon stayed. The sanatorium loomed in the distance, a black shape rising above the fog as though waiting. Simon turned to her. "You know you're going back." Emma sighed. "I don't have a choice. If I don't go, it won't end." They began the climb again that evening. The air was colder, heavier. Each step closer to the building felt like stepping back in time, into the smell of alcohol and sickness, into the whispers of patients who never left. The front door, once rusted shut, now hung slightly open. It creaked gently in the wind, like it had been expecting them. Inside, the corridor was darker than before, but there was something new, faint lights glowing in the distance like lanterns guiding the way. Simon raised his camera. "They're showing us where to go." They followed the ghostly lights down the hallway, their footsteps echoing softly. The walls were lined with faded photos, black and white faces of patients long dead. Emma stopped in front of one photo. A little girl, maybe 8 years old, thin, smiling weakly at the camera. The name beneath the photo read, Emma Vale, room 214. Her knees went weak. "That's me." Simon looked over her shoulder, stunned. "You were a patient here." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "I thought I was adopted. They said I came from an orphanage, not a hospital." The humming started again, faint but near. The same lullaby. Simon whispered, "She's close." They reached room 214. The door was slightly ajar. Emma pushed it open, and her breath caught in her throat. The room looked almost untouched by time. The bed was still made, the sheets pale and clean. The sunlight filtering through the window shimmered with dust, as if the air remembered the child who once lay there. On the bedside table sat an old music box. Its crank was rusted, but when Emma touched it, it began to play the lullaby. Slow, distorted, and sorrowful. "Hush, little baby, don't say a word." Then she heard a voice behind her. Soft, familiar. "You came back, Emma." Emma turned. The nurse stood there again, her eyes gentle, glowing faintly in the dim room. Emma whispered, "Who were you, really?" "I was the head nurse here long ago. We tried to save you when the sickness spread through the children's ward." Emma's voice trembled. "Did I die here?" The nurse shook her head slowly. "No, child, you lived. But not everyone did. You were the only one who walked out alive. And you promised to return for the others." Emma's heart pounded. "The others? The children?" The nurse nodded. "They waited. For decades. They never left. They believe you abandoned them." Tears welled in Emma's eyes. "I didn't know. They don't understand that. To them, you broke your promise. You must make it right, or they will never rest." Suddenly, the lights flickered. The air turned icy. The nurse's form began to waver, fading in and out. Her voice grew distant. "They're coming. You must go to the West Wing. That's where they died." Emma reached out. "Wait, what happened to you?" The nurse's face darkened. "I stayed behind to protect them. But the sickness took me too. They didn't forgive me either." Then, she vanished. The room fell silent again except for the faint ticking of the music box. Simon slowly lowered his camera. "Emma, are you sure you want to keep going?" Emma wiped her tears and looked toward the dark hallway ahead. "If they're trapped because of me, then yes, I have to." As they stepped out of room 214, the lullaby faded, replaced by the distant sound of children's laughter echoing through the empty halls. But it wasn't cheerful laughter. It was cold, mocking. And somewhere far ahead, a door creaked open on its own. The West Wing was waiting. The West Wing had always been feared, even when Waverly Hills was open. It was where patients went to die, and where the living whispered prayers they knew would never be answered. As Emma and Simon stepped through the rusted double doors, the air turned cold enough to sting their lungs. The hallway stretched into darkness, long, narrow, lined with broken wheelchairs and peeling paint. Something in the air moved, a slow rhythm like the building was breathing. Simon whispered, "Feels like it's watching us." Emma said nothing. Her eyes were fixed ahead, drawn by an invisible pull. They passed a half-open room and froze. Rows of tiny iron beds filled the space, children's beds. Some still had dolls lying on the pillows, faces cracked and grinning through dust. Emma's chest tightened. This was the children's ward. A faint giggle echoed, then another, soft, playful, wrong. A doll rolled off one of the beds and hit the floor with a dull thud. Simon stepped back. "That's not funny." The laughter multiplied, more voices, whispering in every corner. The lights flickered and the air turned freezing. Shapes began to form in the mist, small, pale figures. Children, dozens of them. One stepped forward, a little boy with hollow eyes. "You promised, Emma." Her breath caught. I don't remember. You said you'd come back. You left us." More voices joined, whispering, overlapping. "You left us. You left us. You left us." Emma covered her ears. "I didn't know. I was sick too." The laughter stopped. Then every door in the hallway slammed shut. Footsteps echoed behind them. Slow, heavy. A tall figure appeared at the end of the corridor, wearing an old hospital coat, a cracked surgical mask, and dragging a long metal hook. Simon raised his camera. "Who?" "No one leaves the West Wing," the man said, voice muffled and hollow. "They ran. The corridor twisted like it was alive, doors opening and closing on their own. They stumbled into another room, the old operating theater. In the center stood a rusted table, dark stains still etched into the metal. Emma stepped closer. Scratched into the surface were words, old but clear. Emma Vale survived. Others did not. Her heart pounded. They used me, my blood. Simon frowned. What do you mean? I was a patient here. They thought my blood could cure the other kids. But it didn't. They all died. A faint glow filled the room. The nurse appeared again, her face sad and pale. You were their hope, Emma. When you left, they lost faith. They waited for you. Emma's voice trembled. They think I abandoned them. And until they forgive you, you cannot leave. Before Emma could speak, the lights shattered overhead. The nurse vanished, and behind Simon, the masked man appeared, silent, looming, his hook glinting in the flickering dark. Simon! Emma screamed. He turned, too late. The hook swung, the camera fell, and the screen of his recorder shattered across the floor. Emma stumbled back, the laughter of children echoing from every direction, high-pitched, gleeful, endless. As she fled down the corridor, one final whisper followed her through the dark. You lived, Emma. Now it's your turn to stay. Emma ran until her legs burned. The endless corridor twisted like a serpent, pulling her deeper into the heart of Waverly Hills. The laughter of the children followed her, echoing through every hall, bouncing off every wall, until it felt like it was inside her skull. Then suddenly, silence. She stopped. Her flashlight flickered, landing on a metal sign above a door, half buried in shadow. The paint was peeling, but the words were still readable. Body chute, authorized personnel only. Her stomach dropped. She'd read about it once, a tunnel used during the height of the tuberculosis outbreak. When death became too common, the hospital began moving corpses through this underground passage so the living patients wouldn't see. They called it the death tunnel. Now, standing before its rusted door, Emma realized the cold breeze slipping through the cracks wasn't wind. It was breathing. She pushed the door open. The stench of old decay and wet earth hit her instantly. The tunnel stretched downward into blackness, steep and narrow, the rails of an old cart still embedded in the floor. Something dripped from the ceiling. Water, or maybe something else. She took one step inside. The sound echoed endlessly. Simon? She whispered. No reply. Only the slow creak of metal somewhere far below. She took another step, then another. The door behind her slammed shut. Her flashlight dimmed as she descended. The walls closed tighter, slick with age. Every breath she took sounded too loud. Then she heard it, the faint scrape of something being dragged on metal. She froze. The beam of her flashlight shook as she aimed it down the slope. And there, lying halfway down, was Simon's camera. It was cracked, the lens shattered, but its little red light blinked faintly, as if it were still recording. Emma picked it up with trembling hands. The screen flickered alive for a second, just enough to show static in a single frozen frame. Simon, standing in the dark. Behind him, a tall figure in a surgical mask. Then, a flash of movement. The screen went black. A voice echoed from the depths of the tunnel. Low, rasping. You lived because of them. Emma turned, heart pounding. Who's there? The darkness ahead rippled like smoke, and a shape began to form. The masked doctor, standing halfway down the slope. Their suffering gave you life. You took their cure and left their pain behind. Emma stepped back. I didn't choose that. I was just a child. And now you're here to finish what began. He raised his hand. The tunnel shuddered, and suddenly, dozens of pale arms reached out from the walls. Small hands, thin as bone, grasping for her. Emma screamed as the hands clutched her clothes, her arms, her throat. Their cold fingers left marks like frost. Stay with us. Stay forever. You promised. She fought against them, stumbling forward, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't remember. The grip loosened slightly, just enough for her to breathe. Then, from deep below, a warm light flickered. Soft, golden, like candlelight. Emma took a shaky step toward it. The whispers quieted. The air grew still. And as she reached the bottom of the tunnel, she saw them. Rows of small figures, standing in a semicircle. Children, clear as day. Their eyes no longer black, but gentle. And behind them stood the nurse. "You came back," she said softly. Emma collapsed to her knees, sobbing. "I didn't mean to leave. I just wanted to live." "You did," the nurse replied. "But the living never forget the dead. Not truly. You were meant to remember so they could rest." The children stepped forward one by one, touching Emma's shoulders, her hair, her hands. Their touch was cold, but not cruel. Each time one touched her, they faded, dissolving into faint light. "You've given them peace," the nurse whispered. Emma looked up, tears glimmering in the golden glow. "And you?" The nurse smiled faintly. "I stay until the last soul is free. Then I'll rest too." For a moment, Emma thought she saw relief in the nurse's eyes. And then, like mist in sunlight, they all vanished. The tunnel was empty, silent. Only the flickering light from Simon's broken camera remained. Emma stood slowly, her body trembling, her heart hollow and heavy. The darkness seemed lighter now, almost warm. She climbed the long slope back to the door, every step echoing like a heartbeat. When she pushed it open, the cold night air of Waverly Hills greeted her. The sun was rising, pale and distant through the fog. The sanatorium stood silent, still, finally calm. Emma looked back once more. The doorway to the chute was gone. Only smooth concrete remained. The morning sun felt wrong. It was too bright, too still, like a light that did not belong to the world she'd just escaped. Emma stumbled out of the main gate, her clothes torn, her face pale. Her car sat where she left it, half covered in dew. She climbed inside and gripped the steering wheel, shaking. Her phone was dead. Simon's was still missing. Only the camera remained, cracked, half dead, the small red light blinking faintly in her hand. She sat there for a long time before starting the engine. Every sound outside made her flinch, a crow, a gust of wind, even her own breath. As she drove down the long, winding road away from Waverly Hills, the sanatorium grew smaller in the rearview mirror. But she couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching her leave. When the building finally vanished behind the trees, she whispered, "It's over." But the camera blinked, one last red flash, as if it disagreed. That night, Emma checked into a small motel just outside Louisville. She showered, scrubbing away the dirt, the smell of mold and dust. But when she looked in the mirror, she froze. There were handprints on her shoulders, small, pale, like those of children. She wiped them away, trembling. They faded, but faint outlines remained beneath the skin, like scars. She tried to sleep, but the hum of the air conditioner sounded like distant whispers. "Stay with us." "You promised." Emma sat up, gasping. The room was empty. She reached for the camera. The battery was nearly dead, but somehow it still worked. She pressed play. The screen flickered, showing her descent into the body chute. But the footage changed. Now the camera showed her after she'd reached the bottom, something she didn't remember recording. She watched herself talking to the nurse, crying, reaching out to the children. And then she watched something that froze her blood. Behind her, in the corner of the tunnel, a shadow moved, a tall, dark silhouette, watching her, its head tilted slightly, like it was studying her. Then the screen cut to static. Emma's hands shook as she rewound it. No matter how many times she tried, the figure was always there, silent, waiting. The next morning, she decided to send the footage to her editor, Daniel, back in Chicago. Maybe someone else could make sense of it. She uploaded the video, typed a short message, "Don't watch alone," and hit send. Then she checked out of the motel and hit the road again. The sky was cloudy, and the radio kept losing signal. She turned it off, trying to focus on the road. That's when she noticed something in her mirror. At first, she thought it was just a trick of the light. a faint blur in the back seat. But when she looked closer, she saw a small handprint on the inside of the rear window. Her heart stopped. She pulled over, jumping out of the car. The back seat was empty. Only the faint smell of disinfectant, that same sterile scent from the sanatorium, lingered in the air. That night, Daniel called. His voice was shaky. "Emma, what the hell is this footage?" She froze. "What do you mean?" "It's not just you in there. The file you sent, it's changing. The faces, they're looking at the camera now. They're moving." Her stomach dropped. "Daniel, delete it, right now." "I tried. It won't let me. Every time I hit delete, it plays again. It's like it wants to be seen." A loud static filled the line. Then a whisper, soft and childlike, came through the speaker. "We remember you." The call ended. Emma sat frozen, staring at her phone, and then, from the passenger seat, the camera light blinked once. She turned slowly. The cracked camera lay where she'd left it. Its lens glowed red for a moment before flickering off again. Emma whispered, "What do you want from me?" The camera powered on by itself. The screen showed a single phrase in glitching text: "Come home." The next morning, her car was found parked outside Waverly Hills Sanatorium. The engine was cold, the driver's seat empty, and on the passenger seat, police found a camera, still recording. Inside the footage, the sanatorium's doors were open, and faintly, from deep inside the halls, a child's laughter echoed. Rain lashed against the cracked windows of the patrol car as Detective Marcus Hale arrived at the gates of Waverly Hills Sanatorium. The once grand building loomed through the mist, silent, black, and breathing with the weight of every soul it had taken. Emma Turner's car was still there, engine cold, driver's seat empty, and on the passenger seat, a camera still recording. Hale had watched the footage earlier. Static at first, then, faintly, a woman's whisper. "She's home now." He adjusted his coat and stepped through the rusted gates. Officer Ramirez followed, flashlight shaking in her grip. "I don't like this, sir," she muttered. "Everyone says the ones who go in here don't come back." Hale gave her a sharp look. "We're finding a missing person, not chasing ghosts." But deep down, he didn't believe his own words. The main doors groaned open. Inside, the air was heavy and damp. The smell of disinfectant lingered, faint but sharp, like the memory of something sterile and cruel. Their flashlights swept across the peeling paint, broken wheelchairs, and scattered patient charts. "Emma Turner," Hale called. His voice echoed through the dark, swallowed whole by the emptiness. A soft sound came from down the corridor. Footsteps, bare ones. They followed the prints down the stairs, through a hallway that sloped deeper into the ground. At the end of the hall, half hidden by shadow, a rusted metal sign read, "Body Chute." Ramirez stopped. "Sir, maybe we should wait for backup." But Hale was already opening the door. The tunnel stretched down into blackness. The stench of wet concrete and rot filled their lungs. And there, standing at the bottom, was Emma. Her clothes were soaked. Mud streaked her face. When she looked up, her eyes were calm, almost empty. "Emma," Hale called softly, "we're here to take you home." She tilted her head. "I am home." Ramirez froze. "Sir, something's wrong with her." Then, the door behind them slammed shut. The tunnel went dark. The air grew cold. Whispers crawled along the walls, faint, childlike voices. Hale raised his light, and his breath caught. Hundreds of small handprints covered the walls, glowing faintly, forming patterns that pulsed with each heartbeat. Emma stepped closer, whispering. They never left. They were waiting to be seen. "Who?" Hale asked, keeping his gun low. "The forgotten ones," she said softly. "The ones who were buried here and erased." And then the air shifted. Figures appeared in the beam. Pale patients, faces hollow, gowns tattered. Men, women, children, all lining the tunnel in silence. Ramirez's voice broke. "Oh my God!" The light flickered. Emma walked forward, her voice calm and sad. They just wanted someone to remember them, to bring them back into the light. The spirits began to fade, one by one, dissolving into mist. But at the end of the tunnel, a darker figure remained. The masked doctor. He stepped out of the shadows. "You cannot undo what has been done." Emma didn't flinch. "I'm not here to undo it. I'm here to end it." She lifted the camera, cracked, blinking faintly. "If the world sees what you've done, you'll never hide again." The doctor reached out, his hand twisting with shadow, and then the tunnel erupted in blinding white light. When Hale opened his eyes, everything was still. No voices, no Emma. Just silence. Only the camera remained on the floor. Its light had finally gone out. He picked it up, the screen cracked but still faintly warm. On it, one final file name flickered in ghostly letters. The end of Waverly. Outside, the storm had stopped. The air smelled clean for the first time in years. As Hale walked back to the car, Ramirez whispered, "Do you think she made it out?" He didn't answer. But as he glanced into the rearview mirror, he caught a glimpse of a figure in the sanatorium's window, a woman standing still, watching them leave. And when he blinked, she was gone. The morning after the storm, Louisville woke to silence. The sky hung gray, heavy with fog, and the news spread quietly. Waverly Hills Sanatorium was sealed once more. Detective Hale handed over the evidence, the camera, to the forensics lab. He told himself it was just another case, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw Emma's face, standing in that tunnel, calm and unafraid, saying, "I'm home." He couldn't forget her voice, or the light that swallowed them all. 2 days later, the lab called. The technician's tone was uneasy. "Detective, there's something wrong with the footage." "What do you mean wrong?" "It's growing." Hale frowned. "Growing?" "The file size doubles every time we try to open it. It's like it's feeding." He ordered them to shut the system down, delete everything, but it was too late. Every computer that had accessed the file began playing the same clip. Static, then whispers, then a faint image of Emma Turner standing in a white hallway, staring directly into the camera. "Can you see us now?" she whispered. Then the screens went black. That night, Hale sat alone in his apartment, poring over his notes. Something inside him refused to let go. He replayed his body cam footage from that night at Waverly Hills. The audio was full of static, until a faint voice bled through. "The living built this place, the dead kept it alive." He froze. It wasn't Emma. It was a man, older, deeper, colder, the doctor. And then he noticed something else. In the reflection of a broken window behind him, a figure was standing, watching him. He drove back to Waverly Hills before sunrise. The gates were chained, the windows boarded up, but the front door creaked open like it had been waiting. Inside, the air felt different, still, but alive. The hallways whispered as he passed, soft voices fluttering like moths. He followed the sound down the main corridor until he reached the children's ward. There, in the center of the room, stood Emma's camera, clean, unbroken, the red light blinking once again. He picked it up. The screen flickered to life. Playback found, or 4:44 a.m., the end of Waverly. The footage began. Emma stood in the tunnel, the doctor before her. But this time, Hale could see more. Behind her, hundreds of faint glowing figures, the patients, the nurses, the children, all watching silently. Emma spoke softly. "They don't want revenge. They just want to be remembered." She lifted the camera toward herself, tears glistening in her eyes. "If someone finds this, tell them we're free now." She turned the lens to the doctor, who stared back, his mask cracked. "You can't erase history," he hissed. Emma smiled faintly. "I don't need to erase it. I just need to let it go." Then she stepped forward, into the doctor's shadow, and both of them vanished in a burst of white light. The footage ended. The room fell silent. Hale lowered the camera, his hands trembling. He felt something warm brush past him, a whisper, soft and childlike. "Thank you." And then the building grew quiet, truly quiet. For the first time in decades, Waverly Hills felt empty. Weeks later, the sanatorium was officially condemned. No trespassers, no tours, Only silence and overgrown weeds. Detective Hale filed his final report. He wrote that Emma Turner was never found, and that the camera, though tested, contained no readable footage, just blank white light. But in his drawer, hidden from the report, he kept one still frame. Emma standing in the tunnel, smiling softly, and behind her, in the faint glow, the children, waving goodbye. Months passed. Hale tried to move on, until one evening, as he watched the local news, the anchor's voice made him sit upright. A new documentary about haunted hospitals has gone viral overnight, featuring never-before-seen footage from the Waverly Hills Sanatorium. He stared at the screen. The thumbnail showed Emma's face, clear and bright, staring straight at the camera. The title beneath it read, "The End of Waverly, Recovered Footage." And as the video auto-played, Hale heard it again. The faint, childlike whisper behind the static, "Can you see us now?" The screen flickered. The camera light blinked red. And somewhere deep inside the empty sanatorium, a door creaked open. Thank you for watching Ghosterry, where every story hides a shadow waiting to be heard.